Judah Wickower's in the mix. How are you feeling?
Me, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling great. I may or may not have used the little boys' room before the show. So
we got the stickers in play, or the magnets.
Magnets in play. I'm ready to rock and roll. I love. I say this all the time. When it's just Jerry and I, little Batman and Robin and Alfred behind the thing, I just have a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to folks to chime in with questions and see if they can throw some stuff at us.
Some of my favorite content and shows we make are Batman and Robin and Alfred, Bat Dog from time to time, rattling in the Bat Cave. Liza, our beloved mascot. Judah Wickower's become more of a fixture and feature in our shows of late, which I think have added to the dynamic. Judah, I hope you have the 3-shot set up as you're distracted by Bat Dog over there and have the studio camera ready to rock and roll. We can start the program, Judah, when you are ready.
Quiet on the set.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
I love it. Oh, God.
I think we got told to behave.
I love it. Guys, good Wednesday morning. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk. Thank you kindly for joining us. It's great to be with you on a glorious, glorious morning here in Charlottesville. We have a Commonwealth-wide audience, countrywide, worldwide, here on the I Love CVille Network. We're presented by Yes Realty Partners. Find them online, yesrealtypartners.com. Keller Williams Alliance. We love both on this network and this show. Keith, you in the green room in the pre-production meeting were doing some data crunching, and it had both Judah and I white-knuckled and looking at each other. But you got where you wanted to go, and we have some insight to shine on the $1 million and up market in Central Virginia, amongst some other topics du jour.
Topic du jour. Isn't that like mustard that you put?
It is.
Is Dijon mustard? No, Dijon.
Dijon. Spicy or yellow for you?
Oh, mustard?
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to go down mustard first?
I mean, I like mustard.
Oh.
You like mustard?
No, mustard's a big thing. That's a big conversation in the Smith household. I prefer more of the Germanic side, the brown.
Spicy.
Well, it's spicy.
Thick in viscosity.
It depends. Yona actually likes the Dijon, which is more on the French side, obviously, but I like mine with the seeds in it.
Okay.
On that end of it.
I like a good yellow, a good French's yellow mustard. I just about anything for me.
Yeah, we don't do. Yeah.
You don't like French's?
Yeah.
What are you, only a Grey Poupon?
No, actually, it's I've forgotten the name of the mustard that I grew up on. Started with my mother will kill me. We'll come back to that.
Okay, types of yellow mustard?
Goldens, right? It's Goldens, right. So, okay. But that's like a Northeast thing. I haven't seen that.
Did you get Judah on a 3-shot right there to say that answer? So it's not a mysterious voice from afar. This is our director, Judah Wickower. French's is my favorite, Judah.
What?
My French's is my favorite, the yellow mustard.
I think for me it depends. Like if I'm having a hot dog, it's that French's yellow that's really good. But on a turkey sandwich, I think you're right. Goldens is the way to go.
Okay, he's playing it right down the middle of the aisle right there, Judah Wickower.
It's because of the haircut.
His hair's getting a little long. Everybody look at the screen with the 3-shot. I like the French's in a crisp snap to my hot dog or sausage.
So if we're going to go down hot dogs, what hot dog do we prefer, gentlemen?
I mean, I personally like sausage the best.
Oh, you do a sausage?
I'm a sausage guy.
I can see that. Yeah.
But
if you had to have a hot dog,
I'd go ballpark.
Ballpark. Judah?
You don't like the ballpark?
I didn't say I didn't like it.
You're dissing the ballpark.
I'm not dissing the ballpark.
Judah, what do you got over there?
I like the footlongs.
There you go.
Gotta fit
the right
the bun.
What do you got, Smith?
Yeah, so I do the Hebrew kosher hot
Oh,
dogs.
okay.
So but that's what I grew up on, right?
That's a good dog.
The Coney Island, foot longs, all beef, kosher hot dogs on a bun, ton of sauerkraut on it, and Golden's mustard.
Okay.
Yellow mustard. That is the go-to. Go to Coney Island, grab a hot dog. That's it.
That sounds
and
delicious.
A beer. So we've been asked multiple times on the show about the million.
The softing, yeah.
Is it softening? Is it not softening? Or whatever. So I ran some really quick numbers, like literally, like 2 minutes.
In the green room.
In the green room.
Yeah.
Which isn't green, by the way.
No.
But is it?
No green rooms are green.
Really? So why
Yeah.
is that? Why is it called the green room then?
Maybe Judah can find why the green room is the green room.
So while Judah's doing that, I'll just spout out a few numbers and
Please.
we'll see where the feed takes us. So year to date in the car footprint, so that's Charlottesville, Albemarle, Fluvanna, Nelson, and Greene. I believe, did I get Louisa in? I think I got Louisa in there. So the 6 county jurisdictions that include Charlottesville and the surrounding areas. No new construction, because that kind of skews the $1 million
Sure.
and up on the end of it. So year to date, so that's January 1 to today, there was 82 units sold. This is closed.
Okay.
And the median sales price was roughly 1.3. Interesting, last year, 2021, same time frame, same area, same requirement, no new construction. There was only 69 sold. So there's actually more units sold year to date on that. But it's interesting, it's pretty much holding true at this 1.1 median, right? So we're kicking the high and the low out. Ran it all the way back to 18. 2020, there was 34.
Okay.
So that's more than half of what was sold in 2022. Again, holding the 1.3. 2019 was 35. Again, holding the median at 1.3. I'm rounding them down. It was a little 1.1, 1.2. I'm rounding them up or down to that. And 2018 was 35 at 1.3. So 18, 19, and 20, we were all running about 35 units sold
Yeah.
and roughly 1.1. 2021, that jumped from 34 to 69, same sales prices, the same. But so what I'm looking at is it's not softening. We've got 82 sales so far at 1 million and up.
Okay.
And the median sales price was 1.3. Again, we took new construction out because that would really skew.
So what's the data tell you in a sentence?
So I never really looked at that until this morning hard. I don't think it's softening. I don't think it's slowing down.
Okay.
I think the crystal balls would probably tell us that it may be slowing down. I think interest rates might be done. So these 82 that has closed the first 5 months, you know, I'd have to take a look at how long they were on market.
Substantially lower interest rate.
Correct. So,
Yeah.
those are sales that could have been in the pipeline prior to that. The other thing you need to look at that price point is how much of that was finance and how much of that was cash, which, you know, we did not have opportunity to do that in the green room on that end of it. The number one county is Albemarle, right?
Of course.
Those are the ones that are that are high up there. But, you know, I promised the viewers and listeners we'd take a look at that, and we did that pretty quickly.
And I'm curious, with Albemarle being the number one county in Central Virginia for 1 million and up transactions residential. I'm
So-
curious how many are in the Keswick area versus the Ivy area.
Well, we'd have to take a harder look at that, but 50 of the 82 were in Albemarle County.
Yeah, but we would expect that, right?
Yeah, sure.
And of those 50, I bet you
None of them were in green, by the way.
the
And
large majority are in Ivy and Keswick.
Yeah, I literally just ran the spreadsheets this morning and didn't get an opportunity to take a great deep dive into the locations. But looking at the addresses, I think you're pretty darn close to that. But the second largest, obviously, is Charlottesville. Louisa actually had quite a bit. 1, 2, 3,
So did
4,
Nelson.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. For those who were wondering if I can count. They
And
just-
for Nelson, over $1 million in transaction price, had one 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah. So, the acreage on some of these things, we'd have to tear into it. I didn't really get into it because I didn't break that down. So I see some of the larger ones in Nelson probably have some acres. So what this is telling me is it isn't softened yet. I think it's on the track, but in order to soften, it's got to drop it's got to almost go in half to where it was between 18 and 20.
I mean, the units are dropped. The price point hasn't dropped. The units have dropped.
No, the units are up.
Are you sure about that?
I've got 82 year to date,
Uh-huh.
and then 2021 was 69. So we're up over that, and I know 18 was 35, 19 was 35, 20 is 35. I can do it live and double check it, but
No.
I'm pretty sure that's it. So I think this high number was a lot of contracts that went in the last 30 to 60 days, and they've closed, right, on that end of it. So I'd have to dig into the numbers and figure out how did these all close in the last 30 days or the 60 days. But basically, the first 5 months of 2022, there's 82 at 1.3.
Michael Plecker, listening from Duke Regional Hospital in Durham.
We're praying for you, brother. We're praying for the family.
He says this, 1.1 million.
It's 82,
in,
man. I just double checked the math.
1.1 million in Highland Ridge going under contract within a week with 2+ offers.
Yeah. So I don't think it's softening. Literally looking at it live at this point, it's 82. And while you chat a little bit, I'll double check last year just to make sure I did not make a mistake.
So $1 million+, distinguished gentleman offering great data here on Real Talk, not softening right now as interest rates rising. The next question we have and we ask is cash. How many of these deals are done cash only, and how many of these deals are taking bank financing? Albemarle County is dominating the listings that are $1 million over, with Charlottesville in the 2 slot, Louisa the 3 slot, and Nelson the 4 slot. This tells us that there's still some move to the area from outside happening, some Zoomtown action happening.
Yeah, I mean, this same time year in 2021 was 69, so the numbers are right.
Yeah?
I think the question would be is what's available at that price point and up, and we will take a look at that here in a second while you're doing it. But yeah, I just don't see that $1 million market softening, and I think Michael Plecker is telling us that. Let's hold on a second here. I'll tell you exactly.
Kevin Higgins has a comment.
Have we ever done this live? I don't think
No,
we've ever.
It's tough to do, isn't it?
It's very hard for me to
tough
do.
to do,
So
yeah.
there's 68 on the market right now, somewhere in that footprint at that million and up mark. But that's hard for me to have a conversation and crunch numbers. But we were asked to do it. I don't. Based on the numbers, I don't see it softening on that end of it, and we'll keep a track of it on it. But it's interesting that the median sales prices hold true for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years for the same time period.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty interesting.
So Albemarle County, clear cut 1. I would bet you they hold on to that crown for most of the rest of the year.
But they've always.
Yeah.
That's.
Right.
And I'm sure when we take a deep look into it, it's going to be Western Albemarle is kind of where that's at. But the viewers and listeners spoke, and we crunched numbers and provided data.
You want to touch the Frank Bailiff buying Dr. Hurt parcels in Scottsville? I've been meaning to ask you about that.
Yeah, I know that. So
It's a hot topic.
So the Mets are doing really good this year. Look,
How about them Mets?
how about them Mets? Look, Frank,
Yep.
Southern Development, super smart folks over there. They know the market. They know where the market's going. We've been talking about Scottsville for quite some time.
Yep.
We've been talking about where the next Crozet or where the next big hot spot is going to be. And they're smart. They're getting in front of it, and they're negotiating to purchase some property over there. I think time will tell a little bit about how that's going to come together. But if you've been tracking the news over there, Scottsville's kind of got it right? Matt Lawless over there, and then they're opening their arms, and they have certain infrastructures over there. I think we talked about this earlier this week, that water and sewer, et cetera, that will allow that to happen.
Yeah. So what do you make of it?
Look, I think everybody.
288 acres.
Yeah. So a lot of it depends on exactly where that is. It's not 200 continuous acres.
Nope.
Right. So it's
Mink Creek Estates, Paulette Tract, Overlook Heights, Upper Bird, Lower Bird, appraised value 2.8 million, 30% of Scottsville's landmass. Frank bought from Dr. Herbert.
Yeah, so there's the old thing. You can't drive in and out of Charlottesville without driving past one of Doc Hertz's pieces of property that he owns. It's been that way
Albemarle County.
in Albemarle County. That's been that way for quite some time. Look, we've been talking about it. It's a smart move. It's where they're in the development game. They understand the market better than anybody, and what they'll I don't think the water and sewer infrastructure is there to handle that much of a subdivision, but they'll figure this out, and they'll improve systems and develop in it. But the question is, and I haven't really done a ton of homework on this. The question is it in the growth area? Is it? I don't think all of that property is in the town of Scottsville.
No,
right?
It's not.
So they'll have to go through the rezoning.
Tire plant is included in this.
Correct. So that's in the town of Scottsville.
Yeah.
So that's directly working with the city council.
Important property.
The rest of the property, they're going to have to go through all the stuff that I've been talking to the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors about the development incentive, the builder incentives as far as housing affordability. So they'll have to navigate that, and they'll do a good job of navigating that on that end of it. But this whole process is going to take a ton of time, right? And they're not going to be able to do a by right project with that because the division rights aren't there yet. So they'll go through this. They'll do the development plan on it and move it through the system. So we'll be talking about this for quite some time.
So this came up on our show yesterday. Which individual or small team has had a greater influence on development in one area than, say, what Southern could have around Scottsville?
Try that question again.
If you had to pick one or two people in the area that have had influence in the vision of a neighborhood or little corridor in Charlottesville or Central Virginia, who will have more or will have had already more influence than what Frank is going to have in Scottsville?
I think that's a difficult question to answer. I can tell you Southern Development and Stanley Martin, I think, would be probably the two big developers out here that would go ahead and do that. The math's a little bit different. So Stanley Martin and Southern Development do things a little bit differently than some other developers because they typically connect the development and the building together, right? So that's a bit of a different animal. For instance, Ryan Homes is not a developer, they're just a builder, so somebody else has to do the development side of things and then sell the lots to Ryan. Or I think on the other side of the mountain, I also think Atlantic Homes has been doing both the development and building end of it. So the entities in our area that actually can do that is literally less than one hand. You can count on less than one hand. So everybody does it a little bit differently. Everybody does it their own way. The good thing about Stanley Martin and Frank Bailiff and Southern Development is they're local. They have local people that are going to communicate with the public. They're going to communicate with the county and so forth and so on. So, I think they'll do well, but this is going to be a long process. This is one of these, we'll be talking about this for years before it actually happens.
From Grayson for you, which area of Central Virginia is projected to get the most new construction and housing to alleviate the crunch we're in right now? It's a good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I'm going to revolve this back to a little bit of this red tape, green tape thing we've been talking about forever, right? Look, the reality of it is where the path to creating inventory has the least resistance is where this is going to go, right? So if the local jurisdictions and the local folks that are closer to where you and I are sitting right now could kind of help that process along or streamline that process or shorten that process, you'll see it work its way closer to the center of where we're sitting on downtown Charlottesville. Otherwise, it will be, the thing with Scottsville is that 300 acres was in the town of Scottsville, the path to development, I think, would be a lot faster than in Albemarle County. It's just going to take forever. So the answer to the question is the periphery is probably going to get a little bit more traction. Now, it brings the question of, I just filled my truck up this morning.
Yeah.
Right? So
gas.
Fuel, are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession?
How much for your truck?
I'm still shaking.
Yeah, so 70 plus?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah? 80 plus?
No, I think it was 75 and change. It wasn't quite empty at that point, but it'll be between 75 and 80 bucks to go ahead and fill it. Literally, Yona and I were having a conversation this morning of, I don't use my boat like I think I'd want to use my boat, so I don't pull anything with my truck anymore.
Yeah.
Probably going to get rid of it.
Wow.
Well, I can sell it. I can sell it for more than what I bought it for right now, and then maybe buy an EV. That's kind of what we're thinking about doing.
So you'd have to include what we talked yesterday, what Ludwig has done in downtown Charlottesville as influential for one guy shaping an area like Frank could potentially do in the Scottsville area. We also included in yesterday's talk show what the Cosner family has currently done for High Street.
Yeah.
As shaping kind of an area. Ashcroft came up yesterday as shaping an area and what the buyers
Rick
have done.
was early into this and still is doing it. Thanks for clarifying that, because I was thinking residential.
Yeah.
So Ludwig is more commercial. Cosner's are more commercial, right? So you kind of have to split them in half a little bit.
Sure.
On that end of it. But on the residential side, the things have changed since the time of Great Unpleasantness, right? So prior to that, I as everybody knows, I did this work.
Yeah.
At the time, a small entity could actually do something. Now you can't. So just to talk about the path that Southern Development has to follow through that, the hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars that has to be spent just to go through, it's probably way north of that number, to go ahead and go through and rezone these properties and go through the site plan process and go through the years, of assuming they're purchasing, of holding it, the taxes, all that stuff is a tremendous amount of money. The pool of who can do that is very shallow right now, right? Before the time of Great Unpleasantness, you and I could have done it a lot easier with a lot less money to go ahead and do that. So that's what you need to be looking at. Frank Stoner is another one that comes to mind, right? You've got to have the capital and the staying power. The other thing you have to have is you've got to have some, in which Frank and Stanley Martin and all the people we're talking about are doing it, you have to have some pretty awesome vision. And a little bit of chutzpah.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, a lot of chutzpah. Because where the market is today, we're talking about residential at the moment, it's not going to be where it is 5, 6, 7 years from now.
What's that mean?
Well, it changes. It always changes.
Okay.
Right? The market always changes. That's a given, right? Where we are standing, we've been starting on Mondays, oh snap, oh shift, excuse me. And it was a play on oh snap. On that end of it, the market is shifting. The market is always shifting.
So where's it shifting?
Well, it's just overall.
What's it shifting from?
Well, it's shifting from where it is today, right? The real estate market today, the real estate market in 2018 was very different than 2022. 5 years from now, it's going to be very different than it is today. That's just the way it is, right? So the skill is to stay in front of it. The skill is to go ahead and read the tea leaves. The skill is to break out the what do we call those? Crystal balls out there and wave our little wand and kind of figure that. But the risk that, people need to understand the risk that Frank Bailiff has taken, right? He's buying this land. He's making a commitment to do that. He's making a commitment, or his company is making a commitment to spend the money to go through this. And in 5 or 6 years from now, the market may not be there for that, right? That's a hell of a risk that one takes.
I mean, I think it's safe to say the market's going to be pretty strong in Albemarle County in 5 to 6 years.
Let's try it a different way. It's going to be different.
Sure, it'll be different.
Okay, so what you have to do now as a developer right now is he's buying this, he's going through the rezoning. You've got to guess what that different is going to look like 5 or 6 or 8 years.
I think it's a smaller house. Smaller footprint,
You know
more
what?
efficient house.
I agree with you, and I think it should be, but that's not what the data is showing us. That is not what NAR is saying. Homes are not getting smaller, right? But 2018, 16, and 15, we would all say, oh my God, houses are not going to go over 1,200 square feet, whatever number. But they're back at 2,400 square feet.
Yeah.
Is that going backwards?
No, that's a good point. I mean, you got the work from home and the need for a home office or a place for kids to do school.
And the biggest buyer profile, as we know, is the millennial, right?
No doubt, with kids.
And that's the only real thing that we know what's going to happen in the market going forward is these millennials are going to start maturing into, finding a partner, having children or not having children or whatever it is, and they
need more space.
They need more space.
Yeah.
So
Kevin says this: $85 for my Yukon this morning. Kevin Higgins.
Yeah.
Gas stations are paying $4.37 a gallon right now. Consumer cost here is $4.45. Gas stations don't make much from gas purchases. And he says gas stations are raising rates 2 to 3 times a day right now. Judah and I talked about this. Gas prices in this country at all-time highs right now, with every other dollar in the wallet pinched or stretched right now because of inflation, and it has people wondering and asking on the feed about the softening of 30 miles plus from Charlottesville.
not seeing it right now. And we're not seeing it right now. I think what you're seeing is something more of a shift, right? We're talking shift back to normal. Instead of multiple offers, a dozen offers, you're seeing 2 or 3, right? I almost used the word only, but you're seeing 2 or 3. You're seeing a tremendous amount. Jim Duncan with Nest Realty is actually going to come on the show either the 30th or the...
Smart guy, Jim Duncan.
Yeah, and he and I have been texting back and forth because he wanted to know what I'm tracking for the market. And I'm tracking price changes the most on that end of it, and our price changes are increasing. And so what that's just telling, Jim and I were talking about that, is telling us is that the seller now is starting to understand the market is kind of back to where it was as far as appreciation goes. And they're starting to have a realistic approach of what price really needs to be at this particular market. So I don't think you're going to see the outer areas slowing down a little bit. 2 years ago, I would have said I think I actually said it. There's probably a tape here that said that
gas over 4.
everything was going to shut down, but that didn't happen.
Right.
Or it's not happening yet anyway. Maybe that number's 6. I don't know. Maybe that number's 5 on that end of it. But people need a place to live. Are you making any changes to the Miller household as far as inflation and spending
I mean,
money.
we're always watching.
Yeah. So we
what we're
are.
doing. Yeah, we always do.
Yeah, we're doing that, right?
Yeah.
So that's how we're offsetting things a little bit. On that end of it, so I just don't think the outer edges are going to slow down.
How are your peers responding to this tighter market? And not just peers, you know, in your firm, but just the association in totality.
So that's a great question.
What's the pulse?
Yeah.
I mean, it's competitive out there.
Yeah, so we've talked about this quite a few times, right? So, you know, we're competing against 1,100,000 real estate agents in the car footprint. We're also
No,
competing.
it's what, 1,200, right?
Well, that includes like Woody Fincham, who's
Okay.
a great sponsor of the show, who's an associate. So he's part
watching
of that.
now.
He's part of that. He's
Yeah.
on the board, but he's not an actual real estate agent, right?
Okay.
So I think we're closer to 1,000.
Okay.
But what happens with that is we end up seeing people from Northern Virginia coming in, Richmond coming in, on that kind of great stuff, impacting the market. You know, it's interesting. It depends on how long that individual's been in the business. If they've been in the business 5 years or 7 years, they've never really seen a shift like it's about ready to happen. And their skill sets that they've got to learn, and we help do that. Skill sets you have to learn. You know, I'm part of Jim coming on. I'm going to bring in another real estate agent that's been in the business for 25 years to talk about what it was like, you know, prior to this. Some real estate agents, you know, they're going to have to relearn. It's an ever-shifting, ever-changing business. What skills and tools you need today might not be what you need 6 months from now.
Yeah.
And the skill is to figure out what skills and tools I need, or the market needs to do that. So you're starting to see a little bit of that. You're starting to see real estate agents going, okay, what skills do I need to learn? And the smart ones are doing that now. The ones that are not, they're going to be playing catch-up ball once the market really does a full
What are the future skills you're talking about then?
So we talked about that the other day. You know, it's interesting. You know, just communicating with the other side is a huge skill that has kind of gone away a little bit, right? Because it's difficult, right? You got 12 offers. You're trying to compete against 6 offers or 2 offers on that end of it, and you're looking at multiple properties simultaneously. But I got to pick up the phone and call up Jerry.
Yeah.
And say, okay, Jerry, let's start asking the W questions, the who, what, when, where, and why, that kind of stuff. And that's helpful for me as a buyer's agent, because then I can start educating my clients. Okay, if you really want to do this, this is kind of what's important that I gleaned from the conversation. But sometimes, you know, you'll just get, well, we just did a listing where you just get offers. They don't even call to say, did you receive it? Right?
Man.
You know, where are we in the line? Tell me about how many offers you got on the table. Just some really basic questions, because they've only known it for the last 12 or 24
In this
months.
situation.
Right. Yeah. So we'll get through that.
I'll tell you what, I think this question's come in, it's a good one for you. If you're not seeing the softening of the $1 million+ market, why is more housing like this not being constructed? That gets back to the red tape.
Yeah, so it goes back to the red tape, and I didn't pull new construction numbers, and I think if you would add new construction numbers to that, it would change it dramatically. And I think you would probably see that, particularly in 2021, there's probably a huge number of new constructions are going there. But it's the development end of it, right? There's not enough inventory. I was talking to Greg Slater on the way in, and you know, we're on the land trust board together, and we're talking about where are we going next after we finish these 12 units with Stanley Martin. And you know,
What'd you decide?
well, what we decided to do is we have to start talking to Frank, and we have to start talking to some other folks that are working on new projects and saying, look, you know, you're going to have to, in order to get your bonus density, you're going to have to provide 20% affordable. let's work together to do that. So that's where that path is gonna go. But I don't know. I think the million plus, if we have this conversation 3 to 6 months from now, there'll be a substantial drop in sales. But I may be wrong.
Have
People
you-
may be taking cash out of the stock market and buying homes.
Well, I mean, it's down big today. All of them after a very strong showing yesterday. I mean, you got the Dow down 1.6, NASDAQ close to 2, S&P close to 2, volatility across the board. So putting it into real estate is certainly something we're seeing around here. I'm surprised with even how tight the inventory is on the commercial market and how quickly inventory is trading on the commercial market once it's listed. The residential market, you've given us clear data that a million plus is not softening.
I don't
We know
see it.
that the 2 to 3 is not softening, the 4 is not softening. We know, I mean, it gets back to asking the question locally, how insulated are we with UVA's protection that we're not seeing any of this impact us locally?
So, as one who's lived through multiple ups and downs over the last 3.5 decades, you're 100% right. UVA is that 10-ton elephant in the room, right? And like any 10-ton elephant in a room, it's all present. Mm-hmm. Also can go a little bit sideways on you and ruin your day, right? The reality of it is, if we are trading homes in the 4 range, and I don't see that going down.
No. That's going to pick up tempo, if anything.
And it's one of the reasons why I dedicate so much of my time to housing affordability on it. Next Wednesday I won't be here. I'll be talking in front of the Housing X conference about this in North Fork. On the end of it, back to the 30-mile out, that's just where they're going to have to go. So we've got to figure out a way to get the folks who service, who actually the blue collar, for lack of a better term,
Yeah, to live in the community.
live in the community, right? And that's the reason why I'm so passionate about the model that we're using with the land trust.
He talks about rent relief, and you brought this up.
Yeah.
Rent relief is ending around here.
Yeah.
And I was having the conversation with a client, and I'm curious of your take on this, Judah. The conversation we were having with the client is if rent relief is ending and this impacts a lot of people, it could go one of 2 ways. It could get people more into the labor market because they're not getting relief for their monthly rental payment. So it could get some of these people back to work, right? Or alternatively, it could gentrify the community even more because they can't afford if you can't pay your rent and you're getting
So what's
relief.
going up more than houses?
Yeah, the rent is.
Yeah.
I know that's something that you've been passionate about, Judah, with the rent relief ending.
Well, I feel like it ties into to what's going on at Bodo's. We all kind of laugh because we think it's almost funny. Like, here's a bunch of people who are probably making more than a lot of people in the food industry, and they're wanting to start a union, and it seems insane. But what if it's just an underlying, a bit of the underlying problem is spilling over.
But how many of those, Judah, folks were actual residents of Charlottesville and Albemarle, or students, right? Were these students protesting or were trying to create a...
It's a mix of both.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer.
It's a mix of both.
Got it.
I'm just saying that I think it might be better to look at what's going on there as a broader problem that's poking its head above the water. And
Well,
I'm
we
sure
know what the
that,
problem is. It's affordability locally.
yeah, and
That's
so
the issue.
So
yeah,
we're
but there's a bigger problem because you can't just start paying everybody more money. I mean, that's basically, we keep doing that, and you pay someone more money, and then rent goes up, and then you pay someone more money, and then rent goes up. And, of course, I'm just using 2 examples. But overall, the problem is affordability.
Yeah, it's affordability for this issue, for this area. And here's a stat, and I'll throw it back to you, Keith. The UVA corner, this was in the Seville Weekly today. I encourage everyone to read the article in the Seville Weekly today about the corner Bodos. The average pay for staff at the corner currently sits at $17 an hour. The UVA Bodos corner staff, that's from the owner, quoted in the Seville, read verbatim from there. They also have benefits with 6 paid holidays per year. And depending on your time on the staff, you can start to earn a week vacation as well. So $17 an hour for working, quick serve food and beverage.
What is the union going to do better than that?
The union is trying to utilize collective bargaining to get more pay from the owners.
Okay.
And the essence is what Judah has said, that the $17 an hour currently that the staff is earning does not, in the staff's eyes, accommodate
A living wage.
a living wage. Yes, a living wage. And the response to that would be, A, they're some of the highest paid staff members in food and beverage and quick serve in the area, period, bar none.
Always been, by the way.
Always has
Right.
been. And
The
B,
problem is, I believe that's kind of sidestepping the real issue, is that if they are making more than a lot of other people in their industry, then how poorly are those other people doing?
yeah, that's definitely the concern.
I think
And
that's
then the alternative to that is that food and beverage not necessarily is a long-term career.
That's fair,
I
but
would
we're
think the
always going to
bakers-
have.
I would think there's some staff there that's long term for them, right?
Yeah.
On that end of it. I tend to eat enough Bodos to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's
on
consistent.
Who's
people.
in there, and the bakers and the folks that are in the back of the house are faces I see year after year after year. My thing about this is I really would love to know how much of their payroll, how much are students and how much are locals. Because every face I see there are typically students.
On the corner location.
I specifically go to the corner all the time, and I do that over the 2 other locations because I just like hanging around the kids. It's
Yeah,
just
you
cool.
like being downtown,
It's just
or
cool.
in the corner.
It's just
Yeah.
cool being there. I just
Yeah.
like being around the environment there. But in that specific location, it seems to me it's a lot of students on that end of it. And then here's an interesting thing. What if, I don't know who owns the structure, the building. What if the Bodos say, you know what, we're going to close this down?
Well, that's what we've said on the show.
Yeah.
That's
So
what we said on the I Love
So
Seville
what's
show.
going to happen, Coach, after that?
I mean, the jobs are going to go away.
No.
If you're the owner, and I'm just talking out loud here, and we've talked about this, Judah, and it's the location, you don't own the structure.
Right.
You're paying obscene rent on the
Sure.
corner.
Right. So like you were saying before, if all things being equal between the 3 Bodos, that one
I'd shut that down in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
that one has the issue of a
But
higher.
do we know for sure
rent.
that they leased that?
Yes.
Okay, we know for sure they leased that? Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a little lease issue, right? Depending on where they're at the lease and stuff, but it may be cheaper for them just to shut it down and pay the lease.
Yeah, and just be like a staff that wants to come to the other stores. We will then solve a labor shortage at our other 2 locations by taking the staff from the closed down location and fortifying and making the staff stronger at our other 2.
So I love going to that corner location because I love to be around the kids. It's fun to be in line and listen to. For me, I just enjoy the heck out of it. It's fun for me. Could you just imagine if they shut that down, how the students are going to react to that?
I mean,
Imagine that.
I went to school here at UVA. That Bodos location was shut down throughout my entire term and
Yeah.
tenure at UVA.
Yeah.
I mean, it was open it was never open. It just recently went open. Danny O'Day, DOD, has got a comment. You've resonated what you had to say with DOD, Judah. And to add on to that, Judah, if these workers represent the best paid workers in food service in the area and they still cannot afford to live in this community, the question shouldn't be how could a union do better, but rather how sustainable is a service industry run by workers who can't afford to live in the community they serve.
Right, and I was thinking that even worse, if most of the workers at Bodo's at that location are students, you would think that they would have even less that they would have to pay for things like rent, and because we were just talking
Being
about
subsidized by mom and dad.
and not to mention we were just talking about how much the university covers like in-state students. Who in families with
30 grand and
30
under,
grand
they
or
cover
under
everything.
and 80 grand or under. I mean,
You're
that's
talking about income.
Yeah.
and
We learned
so
that yesterday.
They're not like somebody who's just living here and working full time. They obviously don't have the subsidization that they would have as a student.
But I think the key question that Jerry's trying to ask here is even at 17, even with this stuff, with all the thing, that employee cannot live within
No.
walking distance of that, particularly that location.
It's going to be very challenging to live within walking distance of UVA corner.
Yeah,
At
because
$17 an hour.
well, at double or three times that amount, because
You can live close there on $34
they're
an
renting
hour.
$1,000 a door at that area.
34 bucks an hour is $60K plus.
Okay.
You can rent $1,000 a door on $60K plus.
Okay.
I mean, you can. You can.
Yep. No, I'm not disagreeing with that, but obviously, if they went to double that, then that would get shut down. Does anybody understand the process of unionizing in the state of Virginia? I don't.
The CVille Weekly article, and I'll give it to the CVille, sometimes they cover stuff that when it finally comes to press, the information has already been dated by the time the article hits the newspaper, because they're a weekly paper. Their coverage of the Bodo's union, however, is fantastic. And the most in-depth coverage that I've read so far, Judy, you should check this out today after the show,
So what's
is
the
the
process?
article in the CVille Weekly about Bodo's unionization efforts. And it's not a piece of cake just becoming a union.
Sure.
There's applications and filing. I will say that this topic is being closely followed by all the other local restaurant groups.
Sure.
Closely followed.
Yeah. So the train just to follow this down the road. Let's assume Bodo's, and it's only that one location, right?
Well, it's that location for now. In this CVille Weekly article, the corner location is quoting staff from the corner saying we're actively trying to recruit staff from the other locations to
That
join
makes
our
sense.
union.
That makes sense, right? Because they have a better chance if
Makes
they
it
can,
more strong.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So
Stronger.
the whole word collective.
Right.
In that end of it, but yeah. So
And it also indicates in this article that not all the staff is pro-union. In fact, at the press conference, where I follow the rules of Real Talk. I have too much respect for you.
Thank you.
Okay, I follow the rules of Real Talk.
But this is Batman and Robin. We can kind of stretch the rules a
I
little
was
bit.
surprised to see Councilors Sina McGill and Michael Payne and Delegate Sally Hudson leading the press conference for the unionization efforts of Bodo's.
Yeah, but
speaking in favor of the efforts.
So the folks who are watching, we have 3 rules, right?
And I'm not doing that.
No, you're not doing it.
Yeah.
No, you're not doing it. No divisive politics. We don't point fingers, and we have a ton of fun. So look,
I'm surprised by that.
yeah, I was not. They're elected officials.
Should the elected official be leading a unionization effort?
But Jerry, I come from a part of the country that almost everything is unionized.
I know you do.
Right?
And you're not crazy about that.
Well, they're double-edged swords, right, on that end of it. So, I'd be honest with you, I don't have an opinion at the moment, either one way or the other, on it. Starting to form one as we're having a conversation here.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. But I can tell you, when you go take a look at union conversations up in New York and all this stuff, there's always elected officials there. They're always the ones that are touting it. So that doesn't surprise me at all, and they're passionate about it. Is a union a good thing or a bad thing? You know, it's interesting. My oldest daughter belongs to a union. She's a makeup artist.
I mean, Danny O'Day agrees that I respectfully disagree with you, Danny, and you know I have tremendous respect for you. And you've crushed it on the show. He's a writer. He follows politics closely. Should an elected official be actively involved in a local labor movement? He says absolutely.
Yeah,
I respectfully disagree with that. I don't think an elected official should be involved with the inner workings of someone's private business. I'm curious of your take on that, Judah.
Why do you feel that way?
Because this is, and maybe this is the libertarian in me coming out here,
Sure.
but this is Bodo's Bagels that is owned by two people.
Got it.
And these two people have much more risk associated with their business than we will ever understand or comprehend. And for elected officials to get involved into private business by spurring on or stoking the spirit of a union, for me, is overstepping their bounds.
Judah, how do you feel about that? I'm going to take the opposite side of that just for the sake of a talk show, but how do you feel about that, Judah?
I'm not really surprised. I feel like it's misguided, and I feel like this whole thing is, like I said, just a symptom of a larger issue. And I think that it's sad that they're targeting Bodos. You know, obviously this is an issue across the not just the food industry, but you know, businesses in Charlottesville and people being able to afford to live here.
This is way outside of my knowledge base, guys, right?
Yeah.
But are we not a right-to-work state?
We are a right-to-work state.
Okay, so how does that impact into the unionization process? You know, we talk about a Dillon Rule state all the time. Does that impact the process? And again, I'm not smart enough to know about that, but I do want to go back and defend the elected officials for a moment on that end of it. And I'm going to take it away from this end of it, right? I've got in front of me was an article which I was hoping we'd talk a little bit about, is the solar, the SUP for the solar farm in southern Albemarle, right? Right, it's going through the process and all that kind of great stuff on that end of it. So what's going to happen here is constituents for these board of supervisors are going to reach out to them and say, this is what I'm concerned about. That's probably what's happening here. I'm assuming, and that's a huge assumption, is that they've been reached out by their constituents and saying, we're concerned, we want to do this, we want to do something about that. I don't see a reason why they shouldn't be able to do that. Now, is it good politics to do that? Is it in their, that's a whole different animal. But they've been, I'm assuming, been reached out by their jurisdictions and saying, I need you to do something about that, and they've agreed to do that. So I don't see, and again, I just see a lot of this from back home when I was growing up on that end of it, because my father was in the union. Everybody I grew up around were in unions. It's just the way it was up there.
We'll agree to disagree on this.
Yeah, cool.
I think, political elected officials getting involved in the unionization efforts of the police department and the fire department are very different than getting involved in the unionization efforts of private business.
Could be.
Because the police department and fire department are funded by taxpayer dollars.
So I know they're involved in the makeup industry, the makeup things that my daughter's in. So I know that they get involved in it and they lobby on the behalf of their constituents on that. The reason I outlined that, by the way, if either one of those elected officials asked me, should I go in front and do this, my answer would be no. That would just be bad politics on their part. Because you know why? So let's assume it happens. Right?
Let's assume the union happens?
Let's assume the union happens.
It's a hell of an assumption, but go ahead.
No. What do you think the next logical step will be after that? Let's assume that they vote and the employees at that location say... It's
going to then take up all... It will then become all three locations.
That's not what's going to happen.
They're
going to shut it down. They'll shut it down.
Well, I think this is what's going to happen. And I've been on record on this show on the I Love Seville show and that saying they probably shut this place down. But I think what will really happen is the owners of the place, of the location, it's 2 owners for 3 spots.
Yep.
This is the dynamic, the needle they're having to thread. If the effort spills over to the other 2 locations and the staff at the other locations, then they pretty much have to decide, do I keep running this business or close it?
They're going to do the
And they're going to keep running it.
They're going to do the ROI. I think they're going to do the ROI. They're going to take a look, turn on investment. They're going to, and the reason I'm going this way is very important. You started this conversation with the elected officials being there. So under the assumption they're there because they were asked by their constituents to be there, that's great. Okay?
I don't
So
think
what's-
those guys were asked by Bodos to come to this press conference.
I-
It was last Wednesday.
I know that.
And, you know,
I know that.
okay,
And I know that.
because we were at a function
We were at a function.
after hours. It was last Wednesday.
And
so
one of-
when that press conference hit,
And what about the email we got the next morning?
sure, when that press conference hit, Councilors McGill, Payne, and McGill and Payne and Delegate Hudson saw it on social and showed up for it. I doubt that they were solicited by staff at the Bodos Corner to come for this presser.
I don't know the answer to that. So, I mean,
McGill
you
and
might,
Payne are pro-union. We know that.
Of course, yeah. And the point I'm trying to make about that is, let's just, again, so under your assumption is they saw this on Facebook and said, I'm joining.
On like Twitter, on social
Okay.
media, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I think happened.
Yeah, and so assuming that even did happen, so that's just constituents reaching out to them in some way. It's not a phone call.
All right, that's fair. I'll say that they put it out on social media and that turned into an organic invitation, if you may.
The point I'm trying to make is, if this process goes forward and that Bodo shut down, if you don't think I'm going to pick up the phone and pitch a bitch to
The people that were pro from the beginning?
the elected officials and go, what the hell did you just do to my Bodos? They would be sadly mistaken, right? So the point is I'm not so sure they really thought through the bigger picture on it.
Or have they thought through the bigger picture that if this effort goes through, that it then influences other staff at other F&B or frontline businesses, mom and pops,
Yeah.
to their staff to do the same? And then it's put the small business owner literally in an impossible place.
So the roll is back to land use, right? So this is no different than a rezoning, right, from my brain on that end of it. And let's assume a project doesn't get approved and all this kind of great stuff that would have Frank's property out there in Albemarle County. Let's just assume that it doesn't go through and it can't get the density, it can't get the 20% housing affordability in it, and it goes by right. All it's going to do is help the people with the deeper pockets move in there. This potentially could go the opposite direction, right? It could say, you know what, I'm not making any money anyway at my restaurant. Restaurants are pretty historically hard to make money
The
at.
people that I see making money in restaurants, it's the real estate they own that they're even most focused on. It's the restaurant that's paying rent to their real estate company. And those are the people locally that are making money in restaurants.
So I dabble in enough commercial to tell you that's exactly correct.
It's not the folks that own just the restaurant that are stacking paper here.
There's a reason why Bodo owns its 2 other locations. What's the largest real estate company in the United States? McDonald's.
Yeah.
It's not about making hamburgers, it's about owning real estate on that end of it. But and again, this wasn't even a topic on our green room chat on it, but these things are double-edged swords, right? And it could go either way.
Comments coming in here? Judah, you want something to add before I get to comments on the feed?
No, go ahead.
All right, Bill McChenzie. The original Bodo's on Emmett Street, this is Bill's comment. The original Bodo's on Emmett Street was a Roy Rogers chicken restaurant.
I remember
After
that.
Hardee's bought the Roy Rogers chicken franchise and put the chicken in their outlets, the Emmett Street Roy Rogers closed. There was a banner, "The bagels are coming," on the front of that building for years. Then the owner did all of his own upfit on the building. From the beginning, Bodo's was known as a business that compensated their employees well. Bill McChenzie right there.
So of all the decades I've been eating at Bodo. So, we're talking about a couple of super important things to a New Yorker. Bagels happens to be one of them. And
we're talking about, this is arguably the most beloved food and beverage brand in the Charlottesville area.
I have.
Is there more beloved brand food and beverage in Charlottesville than Bodo's?
So Joe Gentile will not appreciate this, and I love Joe with all my heart and soul. But when I go up to Connecticut to visit my daughter on the first weekend of June to celebrate our grandkids' birthdays, on the end of it, I will bring dozens of Bodo's bagels. The people from New York ask me to bring, just understand this, people from New York asked me to bring up Bodo's bagels so they can have them and freeze them to eat them later.
It's a huge deal. This is as part of the Charlottesville brand, Bodo's, as anything in Charlottesville.
I would agree,
except for maybe UVA.
I would agree 1,000%.
And for this to be in the news.
Well, hold on a second.
Please.
There's this whole I Love Charlottesville brand that is kind of up there, right?
The social equity and long-term standing nature of Bodo's
I agree.
is amazing.
There's never been a time in the decades they've been here that I did not see a sign on it. And this comes from the day when I was having employees and I was paying carpenters and plumbers and electricians and cabinet installers. And I go in there and I was like, well, how the hell are they doing that? Right? And we couldn't do it at that point. It was always considerably a few bucks more per hour than everybody else.
This is from Danny about elected officials leading unionization efforts in Charlottesville, specifically Delegate Hudson and Councilors Payne and McGill. He said, should elected officials then be barred from making legislation regarding zoning laws because they own property in the community? Should they be barred from trading stocks or owning businesses that are affected by local regulations? Honestly, just curious where the line is drawn.
Yeah.
I get the point that you're making, Danny, and it's a fair point. My point with Bodo's is it's a private business, and to have a delegate, and Sally Hudson knows I have tremendous respect for her. She's come on this show many times. She knows I have tremendous respect for her. Same for Councilors Payne and McGill, tremendous respect for them. To have elected officials...
But where is that different?
With a bullhorn or leading a vocal press conference scenario, emceeing, vocalizing, offering opinion, unionization efforts, that's overstepping bounds. Jason Howard, if the corner location does unionize, the owners don't have to agree to the terms of the union. With Virginia being a right-to-work state, they could fire the entire staff and start over, or refuse the union's contract and continue to run things as they do currently. I was a member of UFCW myself for 11 years with Safeway. Same union they are working with. The union could lead the staff to strike, but it's not illegal for replacement staff to cross a picket line.
Yeah. So thank you. That was what I was reaching for on the right to work state on that end of it. So that's another path. They can fire everybody. Then it'll become a whole mess down there. If I was the owner of that and it ended up going that way, I'd shut it down.
Ray Cadell agrees with me here. He says the elected officials are supposed to represent all of their constituents. Correct. Did Councilor Payne in any way reach out to his constituents to see how they felt about his participation? So
I think where the difference in this is, and I'm taking the opposite side just for the sake of a talk show, where the difference is these elected officials are not required to make a decision in this process, unlike a land use application.
And that's another.
So were they there as elected officials or were they there as citizens?
The community doesn't decipher.
I agree with that, but that's
they don't decipher. If you see, Lloyd Snook came on Real Talk with Keith Smith, and he talked about walking down the mall, and even though he's on his off time,
sure,
everyone's tapping him on the shoulder and saying, Mayor Snook, with city questions.
Well, we do what we do here, and this becomes a tremendous responsibility.
Yeah.
And I'm at a baseball game, and somebody taps me on the shoulder and says, yada, yada, yada.
In 2022, you can't decipher. Your professional brand is your personal brand.
I don't disagree with that.
So that, that's, I was taken aback by this.
But, look, elections matter. Maybe when depending how this goes, and maybe when these folks run, somebody else can run against them and point this out to them. But there's really no, at least that I'm aware of, and I don't know if Neil is watching, he's much smarter than me on this stuff, that I don't think there's any rule that says they can't do that.
I mean, no, obviously not, because they were there. And,
Well, sometimes
and neither,
people do things and not, there's people speed, right?
yeah, but
so-
I mean, it's different. It's when you're an elected official and you're doing something in that kind of a public setting, it's going to get noticed that you did something wrong.
Look, politics and being a politician is very much so what you and I do 3 times a week for 315, 16 shows. You're always in a microscope. People are always looking at what you're doing on that end of it. If they felt that they needed to do this, then I don't think there's any reason they shouldn't be able to do it, right? There's not anything that says they can't do that. But what about the other side of the coin, right?
Yeah, I mean,
But they don't make any decisions in this process.
they would if the union is acknowledged.
No, it's got nothing to do with city council.
No. I meant staff. Sorry, I misunderstood your statement. Staff at Bodos would have autonomy and decision-making capabilities if their union was.
Well, it's an interesting comment. right?
Recognized.
Yeah, it was an interesting comment. So the owner can say, well, I just don't recognize it. You're all fired, right? And go hire somebody else.
Well, what's happening?
But in today's environment, is that really going to happen?
Especially when it's the top of the pay period or the pay
They can't-
totem pole
They can't hire people now.
in food and beverage.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the top. Bodos wants to give people more money, wants to hire more staff.
Yeah.
They want to hire more staff.
Yeah. So I think if it really does happen, the only path that the owners has is to shut it down. There's just no way.
If it spreads to the other 2 locations, then it would mean shutting down their business in totality. That's why I'm kind of stepping a little more from the shutdown theory, because I think this is going to spread to the other locations. The CVO Weekly article today did a hell of a job. They're actively recruiting staff at the other locations.
So what if they shut all 3 locations down?
That's why I don't think they're going to shut it down. This is their livelihood. They're going to have to navigate these waters. And then the next step, I'm telling you, this is the next thing. The next thing is it'll create a trickle over effort with other local F&B businesses.
So we know they own 2 parcels. Bodos has 3 locations. We know they owe 2. I'm just playing the opposite side of the coin. Let's assume that you're right. Let's assume that they go through and all 3 gets unionized. Just shut them down. I own 2 pieces of property that are worth $1 gazillion. I'll sell them, cash out. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
But we don't know we don't know the setup as well of how those parcels are owned. Because remember, there was an initial owner of Bodos who then sold them to
Yes.
his managers, his general managers.
That's correct.
So we don't know if the current ownership of Bodos
Yeah, so he
is
could-
the team that owns the land.
Yeah, Roger. Yeah.
It
So-
could be the original founders just collecting rent, which is probably what it is.
Well, that would make a ton of sense.
Yeah.
That would make a ton of sense.
And he's in the catbird seat unless the business closes.
So to talk a little bit about unions, it's funny. I had the same union conversation with my daughter, who's in the makeup industry, and they do some really great stuff for her. Right? She is in I can't give the details, but she's in a top tier movie set right now. Going
That's awesome. That's cool.
What are they? Not top tier, A class, whatever it is. The top movie studios that are out there. She's doing something right now. And so I asked her, I said, so that's cool. So when that's done, does the union have another job for you? And she goes, no, that's not the way it works. So the union's good for, COVID protocols and if they work more than 12 hours, there's negotiations between the unions and the studios on per shoot. But she needs to still go out and find her jobs, which I didn't realize until the other day when we were having, because this whole union conversation you're talking about trickled all the way up to New York, and with conversations about, well, oh my God, I can't believe, and this is coming from people that are in a union, I can't believe that that's a possibility. The first question was, how much my bagel's now going to cost me?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, and how much will the market bear on a bagel sandwich?
Well, we've got.
Are we going to bear two? Are we going to say okay to 2x the price?
Well, without the union, bagels are going up anyway
That's what I'm saying.
because of inflation, fuel.
All their COGS have increased, cost of goods.
Yeah.
All their COGS. And this is happening at the same time their debt service payments, if they have them, are going up
Yeah.
because they're tied to prime. This happened at the same time that fuel's higher. All their cost of goods are higher. I mean, you couldn't think of a worse time for this.
So we've got Chris Fairchild and Tony O'Brien coming in on Friday. And the topics that we're going to talk about is trying to communicate and collaboration and so forth and so on. Really, I'm going to save this conversation that
You think Chris is a locks guy?
A locks guy?
Yeah.
No, he's not. Probably
I
not.
don't think he's a locks
He's not a locks guy. I would. Tony's probably a locks guy.
You think
I know-
Tony's a locks guy?
Yeah, but
Judah's a locks guy.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Judah loves the locks.
you do cream cheese and locks, right?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Do you go cream cheese and lox on a plane, cut in half?
On a what?
On a plane, cut in half, or everything?
We used to go to this place called Solly's in Los Angeles. We get egg bagels with,
you
with
go
cream,
egg
cream
bagel.
cheese and lox.
Okay.
So good.
You know what, gentlemen? I didn't have breakfast this morning.
So you're going to get Bodos. Huh?
My stomach has been turning. This whole Bodo conversation.
Oh, this is making me hungry too.
I'll bring you back something.
Oh.
So
Judah's not going to turn that down.
have you ever turned down anything I brought
No, he always says yes.
to you? Because he's a bachelor. That's how that works, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Ray says, here's his point. Rake it out. I lost a big 30-piece unnamed musician backup job in Virginia because my musicians and I are non-union. But that was the management of the entertainer, not local government in any way. He says, I guess my point is this is a very slippery slope and can damage local businesses and workers as well. Perhaps that's why Virginia has remained a right-to-work state for many years and pretty successfully overall.
I've said it a couple times during this conversation. It's a double ill cut both ways. But we're going to ask Fairchild and O'Brien, how did they feel about what the city councilors have done and the state representative has done to support that? So from their perspective as an elected official, right, we're having this conversation as non-elected officials. How do you feel about that? Was that right? Was that wrong? So thank you for bringing this topic up. I wrote a note down. We're going to chat with them on Friday.
Tell us about Friday's show.
Yeah, I just love having those guys on. It's a lot of fun to watch them. They come from different sides of a topic, and it's going to be very different than what you and I have done today, where we did most of the talking. I think we'll listen to a lot of it, but I want to. Regionality is important to me. It's interesting this solar farm that's about coming up in Albemarle County. Fluvanna County actually has one that's been built and operating since 2018, so we'll probably talk a little bit about that, how that process went. I think Tony was on the board. In fact, I know Tony was on the board at that time, and how that process went and what benefits it is to the county and so forth and so on. But people don't actually know that there is a pretty large solar farm right by Zion School. You just don't know it's there unless you actually look at the GIS or the Google Earth on the end of it. Brings a substantial amount. I think that does 1,200 rooftops. This one, if this one gets approved, it'd be about 25,000.
Okay.
Energized.
You did a good job today.
Yeah,
Batman and Robin goes well.
I say it, will continue to say it. I love these shows.
Oh,
it's just,
so do they.
It's just you and I, and sometimes the coffee takes a little bit of time to kick in, and the mouth starts moving. But I enjoyed it. I didn't even get to a couple of notes I wrote down.
Well, we'll save them for Friday. Chris Fairchild, Tony O'Brien, Fluvanna County, Board of Supervisors, friends of Keith Smith.
They are. They actually say that publicly.
The guy rubs shoulders with some influential people. Keith Smith does.
Following Friday, we've got Greene County in the house.
Yeah.
We're going to have Dale Herring, who's on the...
Love Dale.
And we're going to have Jim Friedel, who is on the planning department side, and talking about, at our event that both of us were at on that Wednesday hey, don't forget about Greene County, bring us some projects. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, back to this 30-mile radius thing, and we'll find out what they've got in their pipeline as far as residential projects go and commercial projects, and we're just going to talk. So the next 2 Fridays, excuse me, are going to be a lot of fun.
You're locked and loaded.
I'm trying to get a little better at it.
You're doing a great job,
It only
my friend.
took me 3 years.
Great job, great job. That's not true. It took you about 2 months. And then I was like, this guy's a rock star
Oh,
here.
dude, I went and watched the first
2
couple-
months, hey, you watched the last one and not the first one. That's the rule in the business.
Oh,
Watch the last one, but not the first one.
yeah. I actually took your advice and stopped watching. I don't watch any of the shows again.
Most of the folks don't,
Yeah.
because you always find something to nitpick.
Yeah,
When the
we're-
reality is it always goes well.
I am my most strict, actually,
Harshest critic.
yeah, actually, I got a couple people in my
Yeah,
life.
Yona, maybe me in that first slot. We'll rank you in the 3 slot right there.
Actually, I'd probably put you ahead of Yona.
I'm pretty hard. I'm like that with everybody. It's, people appreciate it, but sometimes they don't, and that's just the nature of the beast. Judah Wickhauer is our director, and you did great today.
Thank you, Judah.
Thank you.
Keith Smith of Yes Realty Partners and Keller Williams Alliance. Find them online at yesrealtypartners.com. My name is Jerry Miller, and this is Real Talk with Keith Smith online at realtalkwithkeithsmith.com.
There you go. I just want to say thank you to
Sure.
the viewers and the listeners, right? I would have not dug into this million plus if folks didn't chime in, so thank you very much to the viewers and listeners. You make us better every day.
Amen. Amen. I Love Sivo show in 57 minutes with Lee Elberson in the studio.
You like Lee.
Guys, thank you for joining us. We'll touch base with you very soon. Take care. Good job, Keith.